All right, this mic should be working. Click, 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 click. Well, welcome everybody to, I don't even know what this show's called anymore. Sketching Past Midnight Live, the place where we talk all things comics, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, pop culture, and everything in between. And I know it's exactly the same thing I say for mental junk food, but you know what? When it's good, it's good. I am your host, CB Smallwood, here with you on this Friday. Well, I guess it's Saturday now. It depends on where you live. And I'm glad and happy for everyone and anyone that's here to join us. Our good friend Josh is here with us. He says, yo. AKA Pat is also here. He says, hey, yo. So I'm really glad everybody's here. This probably be a short stream, short little video. And the reason is I'm trying to get my bearings. I'm trying to get back in the habit of making videos. I got big plans, y'all. I got big plans. And yeah. And I haven't made a lot of videos here lately. And the main reason is I've been trying to work at getting better as a comic artist, and I've also been trying to focus on the work. You know, I got like 3 different projects going at the same time, which is stupid. It's really stupid. Because, you know, a person really does need to focus on one thing and get it finished. But I guess what it is I'll work on a little something, and then once I get so much done of that project, I'll go to the next one. And my thinking is, like this right here, what you're looking at in this low resolution OBS studio thingamajigger, that's WILDCAT. That's my character. It's my creation. And I'm sorry there isn't like a really good zoom and zoom out feature. I'll explain these things here a little bit later. But anyway, I'm working on WILDCAT Dead Man Walking. That's the name of the comic. And I've got quite a few pages done. And the problem I'm having with Dead Man Walking is that story-wise, you know, I think I got a cool story that I want to tell with it. And I think people will really enjoy it when they sit down and read it. I don't know if it's arrogant of me to make that assumption, but yeah. I hope this mic's picking up well. But anyway, the other thing is visual pizzazz, visual excitement, eye candy, you know, the very thing that the comic book medium's built on. You know, it's a visual medium, and I want people to open up the first issue of WILDCAT, and I want them to go, wow, look at that. And so that's part of my big goal, is to get a wow, look at that type of thing going on. I really do need to figure out the settings on OBS Studio to get better camera resolution, you know, because this looks a little bit better in person. I promise you that it does. And so, you know, as I work on this story and stuff like that, I noticed that a lot of my writing makes the story look more like a Netflix series, which isn't a bad thing. It really isn't. But I feel like I would much prefer my comic to read more like a John Carpenter movie, you know? Big Trouble in Little Chinatown, Escape from New York, you know, something like that, or The Thing. And, you know, I'm having other problems writing-wise, in the sense that I'm noticing that I'm doing things without intending to do them. And what I mean, and just give me 1 second, I need to check something here. Okay, what I mean is, subconsciously, I'm doing a lot of things that that I don't mean to do, and I noticed a lot of the story beats for the first issue of Wildcat is getting kind of similar to Pitt, Dale Keon's Pitt. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Sometimes you got to embrace your influences. Just go with it, and to hell with the worrying about if that is a copycat, because I think if something is strong enough to stand on its own legs, it will. And I think Wildcat, the character in the comic, will. I think there's a lot of cool stuff, and as time goes on, it's more and more of its own thing. I don't know, so I'm very conscious of that. And let me tell you something else before I get more into this writing thing, or maybe it is related. Oh, I'm so thirsty. Diabetes. But something else that's happening, and it's very annoying. Very annoying. I can't stand it. Everybody and their mother is doing stuff that I'm either been doing or getting ready to do for Wildcat Dead Man Walking. Here's the defunct first issue. Okay. And I've shown this before, and again, I apologize about the low quality, but I got this this came out. I did this test printing copy in 2017, and 2017 is the year that my son was born. So, but anyway, I got this character here. Her name's Megan, nicknamed the Fox, whatever. She wears a fox hoodie and all this other stuff. And here she is getting chased in the woods. I really like this panel, though. I love that panel. That's pretty cool. And she ends up becoming like a friend or a companion to Wildcat. Now, the problem is, and this takes place in Kentucky, in Appalachia, and all this other stuff, a lot of small town stuff. And guess what? About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, give or take, the Incredible Hulk was doing that. Incredible Hulk turned into a creepy book by a very awesome artist. And he's got a side character, a girl side character that wears a hoodie. And so now, when I do stuff, it's going to be, C.B. Smallwood's a copycat. But you know what? It's not about who done it first. It's about who done it better. I did it first, technically. Although this was unpublished, because the crowdfunder failed. But sometimes I believe that there's just something in the water. And I don't know if my good buddy RJ told me this or not. I'm leaning toward, that, sometimes the universe or God gives you something, gives you ideas or presents you with ideas. And when you waste them and don't use them, those ideas are given to somebody else. You ever notice that when you come up with something really cool in your head, well, that would be neat if I was able to do this or that, and then like 2 years later, all of a sudden somebody else is doing that. So there's something to be said to that. There's some type of truth to that. And there's something in the water, my friends. So now a cool little concept idea for Wildcat is being done in the pages of the Hulk. And, part of my inspiration, I guess, well, not that I guess, is two things. A real life person inspired this character, and when I was doing the first issue, I got really excited about the idea of where this can take the book differently, and I felt like I needed somebody that is a new character in the sense of like they're being introduced to this world, and so as they encounter it, you're encountering it, and that's how you learn about Wildcat. And I think that's a good way to introduce things sometimes. And it's loosely based off of a real life person or persons, and also I like the Wildcat Jubilee dynamic that used to exist back in the day. I thought that was pretty cool. So there's a lot of that. Did I say Wildcat? I meant Wolverine and Jubilee. That tells you everything you need to know. So it's very annoying that some of the things that I'm coming up with are making their way into the mainstream. I'm not saying that people's copying me. I'm just saying there's something in the water. I got a thing that I'm going to do with portals and stuff like that. And then, lo and behold, one of the portal ideas that I had, I think, made its way into Peacemaker. I never watched the episode. I've not seen the new season, but apparently he goes into a zombie world. So that sucks. Now, I'm going to look like even more copycatter. But what can you do, Let's see. There's a couple other things that's happened, where I where everybody's beat me to the punch. It's it just goes to show you got to get this stuff out there, or the universe is going to give it to somebody else, and they will put it out there. What time we're looking at this, I want to point out these little creatures. In the story, until somebody publishes it in their comic. But in mine, there's these 4 skulls, and they are Nephilim spirits, and you pour blood into these skulls, and then they reanimate into these creatures. This one's like very strong, and it's got like an amphibious looking head with a 8 body. This one's got like all these sharp little things to cut you with. This one, like critters looking thing, he rams you with his iron dome. And then this one, he's just gross and sick, and his rib cage opens up, and he can decompose you. And so I did take inspiration. These 2 things, I took inspiration from things in the 80s. And, I'm not really for sure, but I think, I've named them Lars, James, Cliff, and Dave after, some musicians, if you can guess who those are. Let's see. Let me check the chat right quick before I go any further. Our good friend Josh says, I don't think it's arrogant. You should believe in your ideas. Well, I appreciate that. I try to believe. All right, let me go back to my studio setup and look here. Okay, so Ian's probably bored looking at this Wildcat thing. I'll show you something else. I did this for our great friend Marsh. I think his YouTube channel is Marsh Makes Comics. He's also on Instagram and TikTok and pretty much everywhere and whatnot. This is his character, and King Tusk. And I think he may have shortened it down to Tusk, but I think King Tusk is pretty cool. And he's working on like something for me that's pretty cool. And, I got to get it scanned and all this other stuff. I give you some train of thought about this King Tusk drawing, if I will, if I can, if I may. Well, first of all, I mentioned the Incredible Hulk artist. I love that guy. He's awesome. And I've not really incorporated much of what he does in my work yet. I don't know how much I will. But I'm going to try to do that. Maybe some anatomical aspects. But as far as like rendering, a lot of this rendering right here is stuff that I kind of came up with on my own, but I'm not the innovator. I'm not the originator. In the 90s, when they started going wild with cross-hatching in the early 90s, this was cross-hatching that you would see, and then it kind of got abandoned for maybe a more refined cross-hatching palette in the late 90s. And then that cross-hatching was totally abandoned for this more hyper-realistic coloring book style that people use these days. And no offense if you do the coloring book thing. It's not me trying to be a prick or be mean. But I appreciate effort, and to me this type of rendering, whether it's me or somebody else, I feel like it's top notch in the sense of that's when the art form was at its peak, was sometime in probably the late 90s, and everybody just got ashamed and quit doing it, which is a shame. And also this cross hatching and feathering was developed because of coloring in comics. Coloring had reached its peak at one point, and digital coloring was still in its infancy when this cross hatching came about. Maybe by Wallace Portacio, might have been one of the innovators of this, but anyway, the coloring for many decades lacked a lot of depth, and people that were comic book fans that got into the medium to be artists and stuff, they tried to find ways to add more depth to their drawings, and so they started doing a lot more feathering than what was done before, and introduced cross hatching, which was very seldomly used, in my opinion. I could be wrong about that, and well, that made the colors and the inks were firing in all cylinders, and eventually the colors started catching up with the cross hatching and started adding a lot of cool effects, a lot of under rim lighting and stuff like that, which would be more applicable maybe right about here, but you could probably do some stuff here and there on this. But yeah, I'm learning things, I'm trying things. Something else that I'm doing is this. I'm incorporating a lot of blood and guts from what is that guy's name? The guy that does Invincible. I'll think of it here in a second. He's the artist on Invincible, and now he's on Battle Beast and Lord knows whatever else. He did Hulk for a little while. Well, I'll think of his name later, but that artist, I'm trying to learn to do his blood and guts, because not a lot of people in comics surprisingly do blood and guts. And so I want to get really good at doing blood and guts, because WILDCAT and a lot of things that I'm working on is going to have blood and guts. And another thing I'm doing, the blood veins. I'm doing thicker blood veins. I'm experimenting with that. But these are not constantly thick. They go thick and thin. They go different sizes, like here. But then it's like thick through here, and then eventually it thins out more to the arm. And then I'm also going to experiment with really tiny thin veins, which I think I've already kind of done. Let's see. Some STARFURY pages. I'm not super pumped about these pages. I'll be honest. They all can't be winners, but when this gets colored, I think it's going to look really good, and there's going to be a lot of space for word balloons. There's going to be probably some digital stuff put on here. I need to remember to erase this before I go get it scanned, so I don't get all these pencil marks in there. STARFURY, for those that are curious, was something that started out 3 or 4 years ago, give or take, as a project for the now defunct, what would have been the 100s Anthology Volume 3. And there was like a big controversy for no reason, in my opinion. Don't mean to offend nobody. some of the originators of that were so heartbroken and bitter about some stuff between them and Kevin Cross that happened several years ago, that they totally disassociated and moved themselves away from the 100s, and they don't want their prior work caught up with a continuation or something. It I don't know. No offense, but the whole thing was dumb, stupid. It was stupid. I don't see the harm in calling it Volume 3. But they were cool with the idea of calling it Volume 1. And then like the whole thing just got like a whole new name to it. And it just kept going. And it just kind of petered out and exploded. Which is a shame. You know. What you're looking at is another page of STARFURY, and STARFURY was going to be part of this anthology, and the anthology was about, the theme of it was sci-fi and fantasy mixed. Here I'm trying to do some anime looking stuff. I think it's coming out fairly well, you know, as far as that goes. And then I got some more anime looking stuff going on in this panel. Really happy with this. I mean, this whole page looked really crappy before I started working on it. And it really came together, I feel like. Let me check the chat right quick. Make sure I ain't missing nothing. Josh says, dang, that's awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, back to the studio. Which, you know, you shouldn't notice any back and forth, you know, because I'm clicking from the studio to a YouTube video so I can see the chat. I actually have a cool little chat thing in OBS Studio, but it's quit working. I blame AKA Pat. He broke it when he said, hey, yo, it quit working. It's your fault, brother. You've done me like this, brother. All right, so this is a page from WILDCAT Dead Man Walking that may or may not make it, which is a shame because this is a really cool layout. And, you know, I'm constantly changing things. You know, second guessing myself and stuff like that. I had posted to my Instagram a page and in the layout, like I don't have it handy right now. I mean, it's in this room. It's in this room, but I just don't want to dig it out. But I had a page for WILDCAT Dead Man Walking. It was a splash page, a credits page. It's got WILDCAT chained up in the middle, his arms spread out this way, and it says "Killed by Death." Down at the bottom of it is the name of the story, not the name of the book, the name of the story. Remember that? Remember that when you could open a comic and they had the name of the story? So anyway, it looks pretty cool, but like I started second guessing myself as far as like some of the story elements, and I asked myself, you know, how does he end up chained? How am I going to draw showing him getting chained? How is it going to be possible for them to chain someone as powerful as WILDCAT? And so it raises a lot of questions, and you have to come up with a lot of answers. You know, and so you run into problems like that. You know, some people might be like, you're overthinking. Well, you know, I'm a fan of people like John Byrne, and John Byrne is, like, in my opinion, one of the best writers in comics. I mean, he's a great artist when he puts forth the effort. No offense, Mr. Byrne, but his writing is really good. And when he writes stuff that he's passionate about, he doesn't like to do things just for the sake of doing it. He needs an explanation of why those ice powers from Iceman works. He needs an explanation for what will happen if you use Sue Storm's force invisible force bubbles and put it over somebody, will they run out of air? And the answer is yes. Stuff like that. He really gets into it, and I like that because what I like about it is when somebody puts forth the effort about that, they try to make things more meaningful and more real. It helps me to get more immersed in the story. I want to be immersed in the story. I want you to be immersed in the story. And so sometimes that's when we get into a lot of these questions, a lot of these, what ifs, a lot of these shoulda, coulda, wouldas. No, shoulda, coulda, wouldas ain't a thing. I just threw that out there because I thought it sounded cool, but then I realized that's kind of stupid. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It reminds me, I did a video once. It's a mental junk food video, and I like to compliment my sources, because I wouldn't have news to talk about if I wasn't taking from somebody else that actually did the footwork or did whatever. And so one of these places that I get my comic book news from is Bleeding Cool News. And I remember one day I made a mental junk food video, and I was reading from the website Bleeding Cool, and I also shout out, if possible, the writer of the article, and it was oh gosh, what is his name? He's kind of famous in comic circles amongst comic book creators, and he's the guy that runs the whole shebang. Well, forgive me if for some reason you happen to be watching this video. I don't mean to be a prick. People probably don't know my name most of the time either, but this guy, I'll call him Bob. I was like, here's this story, and if you want to learn more about this story, go to bleedingcool.com. This article was written by Bob, the ever salacious Bob. And I just threw out the word salacious because it sounded, maybe scandalous isn't the right word, but it kind of sounded a little bit sinister and interesting and stuff. And then he commented on the video. He's very nice and friendly. He was laughing about the remark about salacious. And then when I was like, ooh, that kind of scared me because I don't know what the word meant. I just threw it out there in the video. So I went and Googled it and looked it up, and I can't remember. It seemed like from memory. I don't know if it was like stuff that was perverted or sexual perversions and stuff like that. It felt like it was sexual in nature. I was like, damn it. Why do I have to be so stupid? I apologized to him, but he never wrote back or nothing like that. And I don't think he really took it in the wrong way. He just thought it was funny. But it just goes to show you got to be careful about some of the stuff that you say, Better have a good command of the English language and quit trying to be like that guy that used to be on HBO. Who is it? Dennis Miller? I think it's Dennis Miller. He's like a living dictionary. Great command of the English language. So anyway, I want to show you one last thing. I feel like this has been a successful test of OBS. Our good friend Josh writes, sometimes perfect is the enemy of great. Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to a little bit less hold the reins a little bit looser when I'm working on stuff, but it's hard, I want to do a good job. I want to do something that I'm proud of, and but the thing is, you have to put a lot of crappy work out there before you can do a good job, right? And most of us, cannot. We're not born great. We become great, assuming I get there. But we become great through trial and error, much error, and many trials. And so the thing is, I got characters like WILDCAT, and I really care about them, and I don't want people to think that they're stupid or. I mean, not everybody's going to like WILDCAT. I have no illusions about that, But I want people to pick it up and read it, and most people be able to say, this is a good book. This is pretty cool. Wow, look at that. That's the reaction I want. Will I get that? I don't know. The odds are not in my favor, but I'm willing to try. So let me show you this one last thing. I think this is pretty cool. It's really interesting. I guess this is the unofficial name of the book, Face Study. And you'll be like, what is this, CB? Did you draw that? No, I didn't draw that. This is Andy Kubert art of Gambit. But, like I said, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get better. And I'm actually going to do quite a few study books. I'll have one about anatomy, one about buildings, one about action and poses that are cool, probably one about female figures and stuff like that. And these are for me. These aren't necessarily for you or anybody else, which if somebody wanted a copy of, a digital copy of this, you just have to get up with me and I'll send it to you. I mean, yeah. But this is for my own personal study. And like, I took the time to do screen captures, put it in folders, organize it, and then I went and digitally edited everything, put it together. I didn't care too much about how it looked, put together. It was more like, it's something for me. It was not meant for mass consumption. And a lot of times I have to stop myself from doing a lot of graphic design work because it's like, hey, this is just for you. This isn't meant for other people to look at necessarily. I got this printed. It's spiral bound, so I can open it, front and back and all this other stuff. And I also got a, I don't know if you call it an acetate cover, whatever these clear covers are. So that way, if it gets wet, it may not get too bad hurt. I don't know why it would get wet. Maybe I spill ink. Maybe I just take this ink bottle and I mistakenly think that the cap is on when it's not. The ink is everywhere. No, that ain't going to happen on this bad boy. I could, just swipe it off, but I'll get the ink on this drawing, and then it's just going to be super annoying. Then I'm going to have to take, like if I don't have the white paint, then I'm going to have to take the white out and do all this and that, or I do that. It doesn't matter. I'm just having fun with you, okay? So let's take a look at the interiors of the Face Study. Andy Kubert, and I pulled from his 90s X-Men run because I felt like it was terrific. That Andy Kubert no longer exists, okay? There's a thing that's called Dead Styles, and I'm going to get into that soon. Somebody probably beat me to it, but, I'll just do a better video. But this is technically a dead style, because Andy Kubert doesn't quite draw like this anymore. He does his own thing. And in the early goings, he was, I hate to say Jim Lee, but, he's taken over for Jim Lee when Jim Lee left the X-Men and went to be one of the Image founders. But in some ways, I feel like his rendering, in some cases, not all, is actually better than Jim Lee. Yeah, I said it. I wasn't talking about layouts and composition, just how he renders, because he does this very unique shading that I've not seen a lot of other people do. And it's something that was done in the 90s work. I don't know if you can see that, but if you look at the face, It's low. It's low camera image quality. I'm sorry. There's some feathering on there that's I think's interesting. If you look at this face in the bottom, look at the nose and how the light's hitting it. It's pretty cool. I mean, there's been some people. It's probably done stuff like that. It's maybe like fuller blacks in the sense of like people like Wally Wood. But I really like Andy Kubert's faces. You know, at the time I didn't really appreciate it. I didn't hate it. I liked it. I mean, I bought the books. I bought a bunch of them. Bought every one of them I found. You know, they had Andy Kubert art in it. But like, you know, around Wolverine's eye here, you know, I know that you can't really tell, but there is some what do you call it, a fade, some fade lines or something going on top above the eye. It's interesting. And right here at the chin, he's got the same thing going on. I think that's interesting. And then he's got this black shadow on the jacket. He's going thick, and then he's thinning out as he goes down to the bottom. I think that's really cool, you know. Did the same thing here on this jacket. I like that. And then the colorist is like, oh wow. So the colorist just put a flat color here, and it looks like it's more than one color, but it's not. It's just one color. And this is the thing I was talking about, like how pencilers learned to render in a way to maximize the art to where the colors weren't just flat looking. They were more two-dimensional now. And this was, you know, prior to digital colors. And and I love you know, Cyclops' nose. We got these lines that go up like this. And, you know, he's got black right here, and then he's cross-hatching up here going up the nose. And then I like this, you know, he's got this going on here, and then the shading on the visor is awesome. I like how the colorist put a central focus on the where the intensity of the beam is going, you know. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Most of this face study book that I made is Andy Kubert. Look at this. Look at the rendering on this. This is, I mean, I'm not seeing anybody else really do this. That's really cool. This face right here. Look at this. Check this out. You know, doing these outlines of where the face is either bulking out or sinking in, and he's just going across with the pencil in this case. And I remember when this inker, I can't remember the inker's name. He's not a well-known inker. But I remember when this inker started inking him, he was terrible. But then things started getting tight, and he got really good fast. And it's really cool. I mean, like, there's these little things. I know the camera can't really pick it up really well, but I want you to look at Cyclops' chin, right at the base where the nib or whatever first goes on. There is a fat triangle indentation, and then it thins out. Fat triangle indentation, and it thins out. You know, some rookie inkers, you know, they'll just do a straight line across, but a good inker fattens that at the start and can add more depth to the drawing, you know, and make the penciler look really good. You know, there's a chance that Andy Kubert might not have done that in the drawing. He may have just did straight lines across, you know, and then the inker just pressed down. and then let loose the pressure as he went across. But like the other thing is on this first one, and I know you can't see this. There's a line going this way, and then a line going this way. So it looks like he may actually use the ink pen, and then created that by hand. But here it looks like he used a brush, though, a brush or a marker. But an ink pen he may have used for this part of the chin. So he used like different tools, just by looking at it. And that's one of the interesting things about inking your own work, and playing around with different tools. That's an awesome face. Beast looks good, but Gamut looks pretty cool here. But when you ink your own stuff, you kind of learn a lot of things. Now, I included some things like this in the face study because I figured why not? I don't care. It's for me only. I really liked how these backs were drawn and the shading and stuff. It gave me some good ideas. Some stuff I'll either rip off outright or try to spin it in my own way. Terrific. So let's fast forward through all this. Yeah, now we're getting to, I think it's the Cam Smith inks. We ain't quite there yet. I think we're almost there. Yeah, we're at the end of it. Let's see. This right here is Cam Smith, and he became like an entirely different artist when Cam Smith inked Andy Kubert. Andy Kubert became like an entire... This is Roger Cruz art. This is Roger Cruz art. Accidents happen, but I thought it looked cool, and I just put it in the Andy Kubert folder and went on, But anyway, when Cam Smith started inking Andy Kubert, he was like a whole different artist, and it looked really cool. I like the prior inker, whose name I can't remember, that was on the book, but when Cam Smith came on in the last 10 issues or whatever of Andy Kubert's X-Men, it was a different book. So I encourage you to get the issue 50. I think it's issue 50 of X-Men. Andy Kubert did that, and that might be the one with Post. I could be wrong, but if you remember the big issue where all the X-Men fought Post, especially, that's Cam Smith inks from memory, and it's just like there's something about it that is just so different. That is really cool, really refreshing. All right, now we're in the Rob Liefeld chapter, and yes, I love Rob Liefeld. Some of these didn't come out really well. When I clipped them, because I took stuff that was small, sorry, cut it, clipped it, and then enlarged it. Let me check the chat right quick. Okay, no new chats. But anyway, so digitally, it's kind of hard to see in the printed form. That didn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. But anyway, I can still see it pretty good to where I can study it and learn from it. I really love the way he does faces. I think it's really cool. A lot of these blurry in person. And some of that's because, these were clipped out from very small panels. And a lot of this stuff is from his 90s run on X-Force when he was first doing X-Force. And technically this is another dead style. This is a dead style. Rob Liefeld doesn't render like this anymore. He quit. He's got a more simpler John Buscema meets Jack Kirby, Rob Liefeld thing going on. But, back in the day, this is how he used to do things. I mean, this right here is, it's Rob Liefeld, but it's also Jim Lee. At the time, when I was younger, I didn't know that. But he was getting a few Jim Lee faces and incorporating them in his work, you know. And like you can't, you know, you don't really notice it at the time. At least I didn't, you know. I think it just, you know, blends well with his art. You know, it is his. And then here I got another quick face study thing, Mark Silvestri stuff from his run on Uncanny X-Men. I guess I like the rawness, and you know, when I copy it, you know, and make it my own, there's like cool stuff that comes out of it, you know, when I do that. And I feel like, you know, I get a lot of cool effects out of learning from Mark Silvestri for his run on X-Men. Which, one thing I want to do, I don't know if I'll update this or not, you know, but if I do, I may put a John Buscema chapter, his run on Submariner. The faces and stuff on that's pretty killer. And then we're getting into more semi-modern Mark Silvestri. And he's kind of moved away from this. This is almost a dead style. You know, because he's went to, I feel like a cross between something more cleaner and also something more scratchy. I got this. You can't really tell because low image quality. I wonder if I can turn this light off, if it'll help. I don't know. I turned the light back on, but yeah. So very scratchy there. It looks really cool. And I feel like the scratchy works better in black and white than it does the color. No offense to the colorist, but I feel like somebody else coloring this probably could have done a better job. I mean, like if this colorist was coloring somebody different, probably look a lot better. But like, you know, why do I say that? What did the colorist do wrong? It's hard to put it in words. All I know is when I look at this in color, it looks pretty good. But when I go to look at this in black and white, it's beautiful. And I feel like a good colorist brings out the best in the penciler. And, you know, and hides the worst and stuff like that. And I wish you could see this beautiful line work that Silvestri did, you know, on this. It's a whole different book. It really is. Anyway, Dead Styles. I feel like this version of Silvestri no longer exists, and this is really cool Silvestri. Got Jim Lee. Jim Lee pretty much is still Jim Lee in my opinion. Though I feel like in the last 6 to 10 years, he's kind of... Whatever happened to John Byrne after he left Fantastic Four, I feel like it's what happened to Jim Lee. I mean, like, you look at this. This is really killer. You know, this is semi-recent. You know, this might have been like 5 years ago, give or take. I don't know if his inker Scott Williams has kind of given up the ghost. I mean, like, I know you can't really tell, and I don't want Scott Williams pissed at me, but this face right here, this is really lazy inking. This is like something that I would do. from inexperience. I mean, the line work here is just very undisciplined. It's very crude. I mean, like this, the line work on this is superior. I know you can't really tell from this stupid low resolution camera. I just don't understand, you know. I don't get it. Got some J. Scott Campbell here. And this is from entirely his run on Gen 13, because I feel like, well, again, I don't feel like he draws like this anymore. You know, this is like extinct. You know, this version of J. Scott Campbell, it doesn't exist. He doesn't exist no more. He draws similar to this, but it's not the same. I can't put it. It's something very, very minute. You know, he's embracing more Arthur Adams and some of this stuff, and a little bit of Jim Lee, a little bit more in some of this stuff, and his modern stuff, he's moved away from it a little bit, and you can tell it's different. It's different. I think this is Arthur Adams, you know. Not every bit of it, but, you know, even Arthur Adams doesn't draw like this anymore. He's changed. I mean, there's nothing wrong with artists evolving, but sometimes when you hit it right, you know, I mean, like, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Those first 13 issues of Gen 13. Really cool. Now, this right here is not J. Scott Campbell art. I know. This is Jim Lee when he did a fill-in issue, which was a great fill-in issue. You know, it was really cool. Fantastic colors by one of my favorite colorists, Joe Chiodo. Can't pronounce his name because I'm a dumb Westerner. Dumb. Oh, this page just wants to stick. Static stick. So that's pretty much stick of it. I made my own study book, you know. So those of you that are artists or whatever, you know, you may want to consider doing the same thing, you know. And if anybody wants a copy of this, I can get you a digital copy. You just have to get up with me, and I'll try my best to send it to you. All right, let me check the Chatteroony. Our most excellent friend, Sideburns, is here with us tonight. He says, "Hi, CB. Hello to you too, friend." You know, I want to mention what time I'm thinking about it, other than being thirsty, is I feel like things are starting to kick up again. I feel the old familiars. I feel the fires percolating from the woods of creativity. You know, I sense there's a full moon out for indie comics, and I think everybody misses one another, you know. And what I mean by that is in indie comics, you know, at one point, I feel in maybe the 2010s, somewhere in there, going up to 2016s. No. I want to say 2016 up to 2020s. You know, everybody's firing on all cylinders. You know, there was a lot of enthusiasm. A lot of people, you know, online. You had your conservative and liberal friends all on Twitter. Now everybody and their mother's on a different platform, which is kind of dumb. Listen, I know all our politics gets on each other's nerves. I understand that, but listen, guys, by going on like all these different platforms, you know, you're limiting the range of things. I'm not saying that you can't be on different platforms, but like a lot of people, you know, just kind of left the other stuff. And I feel like that's a mistake, you know. I mean, who cares if this one platform's predominantly liberal or this one's predominantly conservative or whatever. Just be where the people are, man. Be where the people are. And you don't have to engage in the politics. Just be you. Be friendly. You know, show your work. Show your work. Let your work speak for itself. But, you know, I feel like the 2016 all the way up to like the 2020s and stuff like that, there was a lot of this momentum with indie comics, and people were talking and chatting and doing things, and there was excitement. You know, you had the Comicsgate stuff, and there was a lot of buzz there. I feel like the anti-comic book gators were kind of doing things. Yeah, no, they were doing things. Some of them were former Comicsgate, and others were just anti-Comicsgate from the start. They were doing stuff. You had other people that didn't want anything to do with pro or anti-Comicsgate. They're just indie comics. They're out there doing their thing. And there's like an explosion of that, and wonderful. And I say explosion in a positive way. You know, like, whoa. You know, more like a hitting a piñata with confetti and candy going everywhere. That was indie comics from that little 5-year period, give or take. And just so much wonderful stuff going on, and a lot of people popping up. And then within 5 years, there was a lot of people that had ruined reputations because of things that they either did or were accused of. Or, you know, you had people that fell out of love with one another, you know, arguing. You had people that left indie comics altogether, you know, and they didn't even say nothing. They didn't say where they went. They just disappeared. I mean, just so much stuff that happened in that period of time. And I'm glad that I was involved in it as much as I was. And I miss it because there was just so much going on here and there. And I feel like it's starting to percolate again. It's starting to bubble up. It's just real slow, you know. So there's quite a few people that just needed a break because, you know, life beats the hell out of you. Smacks you in the face and knocks your tooth out. That's for sure. And sometimes you just need to recharge because, you know, this whole setup's ridiculous. I got a let's see here. I got a light. Where are we at here? I got a light right there. Right there. And I got a microphone over here. Up top, I got this webcam thing. I got boom stands. I got everything, you know. And it's still not enough. And it's like, you know, you want to do good and then you end up not putting anything out because you want good stuff on your YouTube. And but anyway, that's not the point. Or it is the point, actually. But I feel like people starting to come back. I really want... One of my favorite shows on YouTube was... I can't even remember what Jeff Lafferty called it. But... You know, Jeff Lafferty and Gibran. I'm butchering his name. Sorry. You can call me Bob if you want. Doesn't matter. But they had an awesome show together. I really enjoyed it. And I guess, you know, life just probably got in the way, you know. People got to live. People got to eat. It's hard to do things on a routine, you know. I miss that. I miss how... You had like some comic professionals showing up in the indie scene, you know, and doing stuff. And it dried up. But I feel like it's, you know, it's coming back again. And so I really want to be part of fostering a positive environment, you know. I'm not saying I'm going to go around kissing people's butt and shaking hands and kissing babies. But you know, I definitely want to encourage a positive atmosphere, you know what I mean? And I'm going to do a lot more videos. Doing this live stream is part of that, is getting a habit of doing videos. I got to figure out this freaking StreamYard setup. I can't stand this camera quality. This is unacceptable. I was going to initially broadcast on Odyssey using Prism Live Studio, and that was a mess. I eventually got it set up. I got it running, and the latency was just so slow and all this other stuff, and it was just buffering constantly. Like, ain't nobody going to watch this. So I love Odyssey. I support Odyssey, and I'm continually rooting for it. But as the kids say, do better. Do better, Odyssey. Let me check the comments right quick. Okay. All right. So I got one person viewing. You are a trooper. That one person's probably me. So anyway, I'm excited about everything. I got like a whole bunch of comic book projects that running all at once, and I do want to mention one last thing. I'm actually entering a comic book contest for Top Cow, and so I'm doing Top Cow, a darkness story. So wish me luck on that. I'm not sharing any of that because being selfish, I guess. I don't know. Looking out for me. I want to win or get as close to winning as possible. So what I don't want to give away anything that's visually cool. Give those ideas away to somebody else until after the contest. Is that wrong with me to say that or think that? Anyway, regardless, I think I'm going to get off here. I'm going to find me something delicious to drink. I found like these. Well, I didn't find them. My wife got them for me. It's a box of these powder drinks. They don't have any aspartame in them, but they do have sucralose. So I don't know if that's much better or worse. And you pour it in your water, and they're. I think it's Weiler's or something like that. I can't remember, but they got these new flavors. One is called cola. Spicy cola, lime something another, tropical whatever. I think it's just 4, maybe 5. And these are delicious. And I bet if you took a carbonated drink, it's just carbonated, sparkling water. You took sparkling water and added one of these packets in there, I think it would be delicious. But then again, maybe that defeats the purpose of putting it in your water, right? But I don't care. Yeah. But anyway, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in and listening to me rambling and all this other stuff. I'm going to be more proactive doing things. And then there's going to be spurts when you're not going to hear much from me, and that's because I'm drawing stuff like this, trying to get stuff done. But I'm going to be more active on the social medias, okay? And I'm going to try my best to lift you up as the tide lifts me up. You know what I mean? I truly believe, the rising tide raises all ships. So be that tide, my friends. I believe that if you want things to change in the world, you got to be the change that you want to see. You got to be the person that starts. It's got to start with you. I believe that if you truly have righteousness on your side, mighty forces will come to your aid. Be good. Say your prayers, take your vitamins. And this is C.B. Smallwood saying, I will see you in the next video.